There are two versions of the 3i Atlas story. The first version is the one they're giving you, the one on the official tracking pages, the one in the mainstream science articles, the one where 3i Atlas is a fascinating but ultimately natural, interstellar object moving through our solar system on a predictable path. Unusual, yes. Worthy of study, yes. But nothing to worry about. Nothing that changes anything. Nothing that requires you to reconsider anything you thought you knew. The second version is the one they're actually seeing, the one in the classified briefing rooms, the one that activated a protocol that hadn't been touched in 52 years, the one that sent 7 cryptographers into a facility 3 weeks ago and hasn't let them come home, the one that has the review board under CSEP meeting twice a day, the one that made the National Reconnaissance Office point spy satellites at a space object for the first time in the agency's history. Today, we are going to go through both versions side by side, point by point. For every single thing they have told you publicly, I'm going to show you what the data they are not showing you actually says. By the end of this video, you will not be able to look at an official NASA statement the same way again. Let's start. Before we get into the specifics, I want to explain how this two-version system operates, because it's not as simple as lying. It's more sophisticated than that. And understanding the mechanism helps you understand why it has worked as long as it has. The official version doesn't usually contain outright falsehoods. What it contains is selective emphasis, cherry-picked data, framing that steers you toward a conclusion without explicitly stating it. The art of the official version is not fabrication, it's curation. Here's how it works in practice. When NASA or ESA releases information about 3i Atlas, they choose which measurements to highlight. They choose which comparisons to draw. They choose which questions to address and, crucially, which questions to leave unasked. And by controlling those choices, they control the picture that forms in your mind without ever technically lying to you. The classified version, by contrast, works from the complete dataset, every measurement, every anomaly, every data point that doesn't fit the natural model. The scientists working with that full picture are seeing something categorically different from what the public release suggests. Not a more detailed version of the same picture, a different picture entirely. Think of it this way. Imagine you are looking at a photograph, but someone has covered 80% of it with their hand. The 20% you can see might look like a landscape, a field maybe, with some trees. But when the hand moves, you realize you were looking at the corner of something else entirely, something that changes what the trees mean. That's what we're doing today, moving the hand. What they're showing you. The official tracking pages describe 3i Atlas as following a hyperbolic trajectory through the solar system. Hyperbolic means the object is moving fast enough to escape the sun's gravitational pull. It came in from outside. It will pass through. It will leave. This framing positions 3i Atlas as a transient visitor, something passing through our neighborhood on its way somewhere else. Nothing permanent, nothing to be concerned about. The public trajectory maps are updated periodically and show a smooth, predictable arc. The language used in every official update emphasizes words like expected and predicted and consistent with models. The message is clear. We know where it's going. We have it tracked. It is doing what objects do, what they're actually seeing. The full trajectory dataset, portions of which have been shared with independent researchers through back channels, tells a different story. 3i Atlas has deviated from its initial hyperbolic path 3 times. Each deviation has been documented by multiple independent tracking systems. None of the deviations can be accounted for by gravitational influence from any body in the solar system. The first deviation was a deceleration detected 8 days after initial observation. The second was a subsequent acceleration 4 days later. The third was a microcorrection, a precise angular adjustment that 3 separate astrophysics teams described as consistent with guided navigation. But here is the part the official version has been most careful to avoid discussing. The current projected path of 3I, Atlas, calculated using the full deviation-corrected trajectory data, does not match a simple hyperbolic flyby. The corrected path puts the object on a course that, if the deceleration trend continues, results in something that the Caltech team's internal communication described as consistent with orbital insertion around the inner solar system. They are showing you a visitor. What they are actually seeing may be something that is not planning to leave. What they're showing you. The official scientific communications about 3I, Atlas's composition describe it as unusual. That word keeps appearing. Unusual composition, unusual spectral readings, unusual molecular profile. The word unusual is doing enormous work in the official version because it acknowledges the anomaly just enough to seem transparent while framing it as a matter of scientific curiosity rather than scientific alarm. The public-facing papers describe the spectral data as showing elements not previously observed in combination in a natural space object. They suggest this may indicate the object originated in a region of the galaxy with different chemical evolution than our solar neighborhood. An exotic natural origin. Interesting for science. Not significant for anyone else. What they're actually seeing. The full spectroscopic dataset from the ESO's Very Large Telescope does not support the exotic natural origin framing. What it shows is a molecular geometry, the three-dimensional arrangement of atoms within the object's surface molecules, that is not just unusual, it is optimized. Optimized is a word with a precise meaning in materials science. It means the structure has been designed or selected to maximize a specific property. In this case, the molecular geometry of 3I, Atlas's surface composition, appears to maximize structural stability under the precise conditions of interstellar travel. Extreme cold, high radiation exposure, micro-impact stress over vast distances and timescales. A senior ESO researcher, in a communication leaked to an independent science journalist, did not use the word unusual. They used the words deliberate design. They wrote that the composition looks less like something that formed and more like something that was made. The official version calls it unusual. The actual data suggests it was built. What they're showing you. The official position on the 3I Atlas signal has gone through 3 distinct phases, each one a carefully managed retreat. Phase 1. Denial. In the first week after the signal was detected by the Deep Space Network, there was no official acknowledgement that a signal existed at all. The tracking pages made no mention of it. No statement was issued. The signal simply did not exist in the official version. Phase 2. Acknowledgement without characterization. After independent researchers began publicly discussing the signal based on publicly available DSN data, the official version shifted. Yes, an emission has been detected. It is being analyzed. It is too early to draw conclusions. This phase lasted approximately 10 days. Phase 3. Naturalization. The current official framing, to the extent any framing has been offered, describes the emission as a possible natural electromagnetic resonance associated with the object's movement through the solar magnetic field. a passive physical phenomenon, not a transmission, not a signal in any meaningful sense, just an object making noise as it moves. What they're actually seeing. The classified analysis of the signal contains 4 findings that the naturalization framing cannot accommodate. First, the 1-7 second pulse interval has shown 0 deviation over 19 days of continuous transmission. Natural electromagnetic resonances drift. They are affected by temperature changes, velocity changes, interaction with varying magnetic field densities. The 3I Atlas signal has not drifted by a single millisecond across hundreds of thousands of pulses. Second, the signal contains an internal modulation, a pattern within the carrier wave that is not consistent with passive resonance. Passive resonance produces clean, unmodulated signals. The 3I Atlas signal has structure inside its structure. Third, that internal modulation follows a base 1-2 mathematical framework. The probability of a natural process producing a base 1-2 encoded modulation is, for practical purposes, 0. Base 1-2 is a choice. Choices require choosers. Fourth, and most significantly, the base 1-2 modulation encodes a dodecahedral geometry that repeats consistently across thousands of cycles. A natural process producing a perfect geometric solid encoded in a universal mathematical system is not a phenomenon that any existing physical model can account for. They are showing you noise. What they are actually hearing is a message. What they're showing you. The official version of 3I Atlas places it in a lineage. The third interstellar object ever detected, following Oumuamua and Borisov. Each one has taught us more about the interstellar medium. Each one has expanded our understanding of what travels between the stars. 3I Atlas is the latest chapter in an ongoing story of scientific discovery. This framing is effective because it's partially true. 3I Atlas is the third detected interstellar object. The lineage is real. But the lineage framing does 2 things. It normalizes 3I Atlas by association with its predecessors, and it completely omits the one historical event that gives 3I Atlas its most significant context. December 1972, Apollo 17, the classified detection, CSEP. None of this appears in any official communication about 3I Atlas. The 1972 connection does not exist in the official version. What they're actually seeing. The classified record shows that the signal from 3I Atlas matches the signal detected by the Honeysuckle Creek monitoring station in Australia on December 13th, 1972 on 4 simultaneous characteristics. The 1-7 second pulse interval, the frequency band, the modulation pattern, the base 1-2 internal structure. The probability of 4 independent characteristics matching simultaneously across 52 years by coincidence is statistically negligible. The classified analysis does not treat this as a coincidence. It treats it as continuity, the same source, the same system, returning. The 1972 detection triggered the first activation of CSEP. The 3I Atlas detection triggered the second, the same protocol, for the same reason, 52 years apart. The official version places 3I Atlas in a lineage of scientific discovery. What they are actually seeing places it in a lineage of something else entirely. A pattern of visits, a pattern of transmissions, a pattern that began at least as far back as 1972 and possibly much further. What they're showing you. The official government response to 3I Atlas, to the extent it has been communicated at all, is one of measured scientific interest. Routine monitoring, standard protocols. Nothing that rises to the level of requiring public communication beyond what tracking pages provide. The silence itself has been framed implicitly as a non-event. Agencies are busy. Scientists are working. When there is something meaningful to share, it will be shared. The absence of communication is being presented as the natural background state of institutions doing their jobs quietly. What they're actually seeing. The documented actions of the past 3 weeks tell a story that the silence cannot contain. CSEP activated, a protocol requiring daily presidential briefings that has not been triggered in 52 years. The UN Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space convened an emergency session with 72 hours notice at a restriction level used only twice before in the committee's history. The National Reconnaissance Office repositioned 2 satellite assets to maintain continuous high-resolution observation of 3I Atlas's current position. Spy satellites pointed at space. The U.S. Air Force's 18th Space Control Squadron moved into a heightened monitoring posture with extended shifts and expanded sensor coverage. The CSEP Review Board, which historically has met a maximum of twice per year, has met 6 times in 11 days and is now convening twice daily. 7 cryptographers from 4 countries were transported to an unidentified facility, decoded the signal over 11 days, and have not returned to their universities 3 weeks later. The Prague mathematician's preprint on the base 1-2 signal structure was pulled from its server. Her university website no longer lists her current research. Independent researchers discussing the signal publicly were contacted by a legal firm acting for an unnamed federal contractor and asked to stop. Satellite tracking data showing the NRO repositioning was retroactively removed from public databases. They are showing you routine monitoring. What they are actually doing is the most intensive, coordinated, multi-institutional response to a space object in the history of human civilization. What they're showing you. 3I Atlas is an interstellar object. It is large, it is fast, it has an unusual composition. It is emitting some form of electromagnetic signal that is being studied. It is following a trajectory through the solar system. It is being monitored by the appropriate agencies. There is no cause for public concern. That is the complete official characterization, 5 sentences, for the most significant object ever detected approaching our solar system. What they're actually seeing. The classified characterization, assembled from the leaked documents, the anonymous researcher testimonies, the cryptographic team's partially disclosed findings, and the behavior of institutions that cannot fully hide what they know, points to something that 5 sentences cannot contain. An object of non-natural composition, built from materials that optimize for interstellar travel conditions, that has navigated itself into our solar system under controlled propulsion, that has been transmitting a mathematically structured signal encoded in a universal numerical system that contains within that signal Earth's coordinates alongside 6 other star systems, a temporal record of human civilization spanning 200 years, and a time marker pointing to a specific moment approximately 14 months from now. An object that matches, on 4 simultaneous characteristics, a classified detection from 1972. Meaning this is not a first encounter, this is a return. An object that 7 of the world's most qualified cryptographers spent 11 days decoding and then refused to leave. Whose spouse says they sent a message 4 days ago saying what we found is real and I am not ready to come home yet. They are showing you an unusual space object. What they are actually seeing is confirmed non-human intelligence, active, present, transmitting, and apparently operating on a timeline that they have chosen to share with us. I want to spend time on this because I think it's the question most people don't ask. Not what are they hiding, but why. The instinct is to assume malice, to assume that governments hide things because they want power, because they want control, because they don't trust the public. And I don't dismiss that instinct entirely. Power structures do protect themselves, that is real. But I think the reason for the two versions of 3I, Atlas, is more complicated and in some ways more human than simple malice. Consider what the people in those briefing rooms are actually sitting with. Confirmed evidence of non-human intelligence, active in our solar system, transmitting a signal that encodes our coordinates, our history, and a future date. Evidence that this has happened before and was concealed from the public for 52 years. Now consider what happens if you release that information tomorrow. Not carefully, not gradually, not with preparation, just release it. Financial markets process information faster than human psychology. The reaction would not be orderly. Religious institutions that have built entire meaning-making frameworks around human uniqueness would face an existential crisis simultaneously with their congregations. Political systems that depend on national identity and the idea of a bounded human community would face pressure they were not designed to handle. And 8 billion people would be asked to absorb, without preparation, the single most reality-altering piece of information in the history of our species. The people making the decision to maintain the two versions are not necessarily villains. They may be people who are genuinely terrified of what happens when the second version becomes the only version. When there is no more official version to cushion the impact. That doesn't make it right, but it makes it human. And understanding that it's human helps you understand that it will eventually fail. Because humans, under sufficient pressure, tell the truth. Not always, not immediately, but eventually. The dam has never held forever. It won't this time either. I want to give you something practical before we close, because understanding that two versions exist is only useful if you know how to read the official version going forward. First rule: listen for what is not said. Official communications about 3I Atlas are as revealing in their omissions as in their content. When a statement addresses the trajectory but not the velocity deviations, the deviations are significant. When a statement addresses the composition but not the molecular geometry, the geometry is significant. The shape of the silence tells you where the weight is. Second rule: watch the timing. Official updates don't happen randomly. They happen when independent information is about to become too widely circulated to ignore. When you see an official statement, ask yourself what was about to come out that this statement was designed to get ahead of. The Prague preprint was gaining traction before it was pulled. The naturalization framing of the signal appeared just as independent researchers were beginning to discuss the base 1-2 structure publicly. Third rule: track the behavior, not the words. What institutions do is more reliable than what they say. CSEP activation is behavior. NRO repositioning is behavior. Emergency UN sessions are behavior. Twice daily review board meetings are behavior. The words say routine monitoring. The behavior says crisis management. Fourth rule: notice when sources go quiet. When a researcher who has been publicly discussing 3I Atlas stops posting, stops responding, stops publishing, That silence is information. It means either they have been asked to stop or they have learned something that has made them stop voluntarily. Either way, something changed. And something changing is always worth noting. These 4 rules will not give you the classified version, but they will help you read the official version for what it is, a managed surface over something much larger. 2 versions, running simultaneously, for the same object, in the same moment. The official version says, unusual interstellar visitor, routine monitoring, nothing to see here. The actual version says, non-human intelligence, confirmed presence, active signal, Earth's coordinates encoded in the transmission, 200 years of observations of our civilization, documented and sent back to us, and a date 14 months from now that 7 cryptographers found significant enough to stay inside a classified facility for 3 weeks to keep studying. Every comparison we walk through today points in the same direction. Trajectory, they say flyby. The data says orbital approach. Composition, they say unusual. The data says engineered. Signal, they say resonance. The data says message. History, they say third interstellar object. The data says return visit. Government response, they say routine. The behavior says crisis. What it is, they say space object. The full picture says confirmed contact. 6 comparisons. 6 times the official version points away from what the data shows. That is not coincidence. That is a system. A system that has been running since at least 1972, and that is under more pressure right now than it has ever been. The next video goes into the 6 other coordinates in the signal. The star systems listed alongside Earth, what our own science says about each of them, and the one system on that list that has been producing anomalous radio emissions for 11 years, emissions that our own SETI researchers flagged as potentially significant, and then quietly stopped discussing. That connection has never been made publicly before. Until next time, subscribe. Share this with someone who is still reading the official version and believing it. And drop a comment with which comparison hit hardest. Because the 2 versions cannot coexist forever, and when only one remains, you will want to have understood both.